And then,
Oh, that's good. That's nice to know.
well,
You're a musician.
this is the one when I met you, I brought over. One of my reasons for writing is the Fun Finder. IJ Fun Finder pays $25 a story. That's not the motivation. It's
I beg your pardon. Say that slowly.
oh, sorry. The IJ has a Saturday section, like the pink section.
Oh, I see.
It's called the Fun
The
Finder.
Fun Finder.
Yeah, and they pay $25 a story.
Oh, I see.
So
Hey.
I have an interest in it, in that what I think of music and what I think should be get publicity and what shouldn't.
Oh, I see. Okay, sure.
Kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
I did one of my reasons for writing is the Fun Finder. IJ Fun Finder pays $25 a story. That's not the motivation. It's
I beg your pardon. Say that slowly.
oh, sorry. The IJ has a Saturday section, like the pink section.
Oh, I see.
It's called the Fun
The
Finder.
Fun Finder.
Yeah, and they pay $25 a story.
Oh, I see.
So
Hey.
I have an interest in it, in that what I think of music and what I think should be get publicity and what shouldn't.
Oh, I see. Okay, sure.
Kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
I did my next story next week will be on two little girls that sing in the area that, for my money, are as good as Linda Ronstadt, but in manner of management or right place at the right time,
Yeah.
they're singing for pennies.
Sure.
So.
It's the whole music business is all that stuff. It's luck and that, you know.
Well, being real good doesn't necessarily have
No.
anything to do with making it.
No, it certainly doesn't.
So while you were downstairs, Rock played me your album.
Well, what you're hearing is not totally finished. I mean, I'm going to remix some of this stuff, and so it's, you know, you can get an idea of what the music is sort of like, but there's going to be some remixing done.
Well, the impression I got is it wasn't a real rocker, but it's a pace, just like slightly faster than heartbeat pace. It moves.
Yeah, I have never done one that was an out-and-out rocker. I don't think. I mean, my groove is really sort of kind of a walking groove. You know what I mean? It's
Like the walking bass kind of just
yeah.
moves it
Right.
forward motion, but
Most of
not
my records,
around.
I think, are mostly that way. I've never put one out that is really a stampeding thing. You know what I mean? I don't think. I mean, yeah,
One question about your solo albums, though, is on your first one you had an electronic tune,
yeah.
and then that was like 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Since then, everybody's doing it. Talking Heads put out a real good one with Brian Eno, but you didn't seem to have pursued it after that. Did you drop it?
Well, not as an idea. Well, let me put it this way: it's not. It isn't something I took up really. With that record, I had a certain approach in mind, especially for that side, the side that has the electronic stuff that you describe as electronic, though in reality it's not really electronic. It's really, you could describe it as audio collage, I think, more accurately. It's not really electronic, it's like paste up. I had something specific in mind there, you know what I mean? I had a concept, if you will, although I don't like the use of that word in relation to records that well, you know. That is it. And in the absence of anything of that sort, you know, I mean, I don't see electronic pieces as songs, you know what I mean? It isn't. I wouldn't feel comfortable about about having an electronic tune in and amongst more conventional music. Well, because it's really not a format that I'm totally comfortable with. You know what I mean? In reality, that record is a singular thing, as the way each of them are really, and it isn't that often that I get an idea which is like unified as sort of a beginning to ending, like a large piece. You know what I mean?
Well, like for a small electronic piece, you have you don't like the word, but a concept in mind. Is that like to put the listener in a certain frame of mind?
Yeah, sort of. And also an approach. I mean, when I say that, it also has to do with an approach. In other words, the way I'm going to go about making the record.
Well, is it like it doesn't matter what instruments you use, it's the effect you want to have or the feeling you want to evoke?
Yeah, the feeling I want to evoke is more close to the truth, although all those things are... See, the way I approached that record, that side, was that I wanted to play it through beginning... I wanted to perform it through beginning to end, that side. And what I did was sat down at the piano, and Bill sat down at the drums. He and I were the only musicians. And that side got performed, really, beginning to end. And a lot of the music on it is actually stuff that was composed after that. It was essentially improvised. We just played, and then everything else is built on that, you know. So it was the way I wanted to do it without having any idea of what I was gonna end up with, whether the approach was going to be successful, you know. And that was my approach. That's what I went into the studio hoping to do. And actually, as far as it went, I ended up piecing some of it together, and some of it was actually performed as one continuous flow, you know. But that was how the idea developed, and that was what yielded the results that you hear on the record. I mean, I don't know if I'm being clear, but
well,
you know what I mean?
So you never started off going, well, I'll get the latest Octron and
No.
see what I can fuck
I
around.
didn't. I don't do things that way, you know.
The thing that I think is really neat on that album is the part where it's just you and Billy, and there's a long instrumental piece, and the chord changes are emotional, you know, like, and you can play with spare leads, letting the chords, when they change, the note on the lead will have a different effect on you emotionally, and
Right.
and it works that way.
Right. Well, that's right. Well, it's the personality. For me, every note has a personality. That's my ideal. You know what I mean? That every note has a, you know, before you. You know what I mean?
How does one do that?
Well, for me, it's an ongoing process, and I wouldn't know how anybody else would do it, but the way I do it is that I check myself and see whether I'm finding myself getting repetitious. You know, whether certain things are I'm playing them because they come easily to me rather than because I'm hearing what they are.
So it's like when you're playing the lead, you have to be really discipline yourself to be right in the present.
Well,
in the moving
yeah, in a
line.
way, but for me, that really means not being there, and it doesn't mean being there. It means not being there. You know what I mean? It's like an absence of myself. I mean, if I'm there thinking too much, I find that's objectionable to me. I'm not getting off. When I'm really getting off is when I'm listening to it as it's happening, and it's having the effect of surprising me because of by virtue of that it's has a flow of its own, which I am almost able to step back and dig. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
For me.
Jams
That's
when
the
it's
alpha
like
moment.
You're
you know?
sitting on the ceiling watching yourself play,
Yeah.
or you're just somewhere and you just kind of know your own.
That's what I like. That's the space I like to get to. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I don't want to use any catchphrases, but like the Grateful Dead are all about, and why there's so many people that keep coming over and over again, and everything. And since I'm doing this in the IJ, I want to convey that to
I
their readers.
concur.
I just don't want to make a lost effort, and I want to make them understand.
Right. Well, I mean that. I think that's true. Everybody in the Grateful Dead basically has that kind of notion. I mean, that's probably the reason we've been together for such a long time, and then we're sort of drawn together because that's like the good part. You know what I mean? That's the fun part. That's what's kind of what making music is all about, really.
And then when you tie the audience in and everybody seems to be on the same line.
Yeah, it's just great. I mean, it's not something you do. It's not something I can do consciously. You know, it's not. I'm not that great, or it isn't that kind of thing. It's this kind of thing that sort of you try to stay in shape for it to happen, and then hope that it happens. It's really that kind of thing more than, you know what I mean? It's not something you can turn on and off.
Well, it's like you decide to chance it, and like you just cast your line, and then see if it works.
If it wasn't for that thing of deciding to chance it, you'd never know that could happen. You know, I mean, and it really comes from that basically having faith in that thing of let's chance it.
Then there's some phenomena that happens when it clicks. Everything's caught in like a whirlpool, and it's just then I guess it's the old phrase: the music plays the band.
That's right.
And then you are genuinely amazed that maybe like later on when you listen to it, it's like listening to it for the first time.
Oh yeah, well, and also when it's happening, it's I'm going to be genuinely amazed. That's like a real great, that's a real great space. There's two spaces I like to be in playing. One of them is the thing of being totally absorbed. That is like, there are times when the music is when it's very hard to play. And that I like to be occupied like that. You know what I mean? Challenged, if you is another way of looking at it.
Like playing a real disciplined song or something?
Well, not necessarily. It's just that when the music is happening at such a level of intensity or delicacy or balance or any number of other possible states that you have to really be, you know, you have to, I mean, for me, it means almost excluding everything else, and just, you know, that moment is the only thing that's happening. And the other thing is the thing of being, of relaxing, being as though, being in a way as though I'm a member of the audience listening to stuff that's happening, being surprised at what's coming out. You know what I mean? And they're kind of two different states. I like them both for different reasons. But they both, either one of them, I mean, that's what I'm into music for. Those two kind of spaces. These are rough approximations, you know, because actually the experience is much bigger than that. Really, but that's what they're most like, you know. That's the closest I can come to verbalizing kind of what it's like. You know? And for me, it's key. There's a couple of requirements. One of the requirements is that I have to be well practiced. I mean, my chops have to be in good shape. That has to be there. Otherwise, neither of those states can happen. And well, that's, as far as I know, that's the only way that I can really. And my stuff has to be working right too. My equipment has to be working right. Those are the two kind of requirements that you can do something about. The rest of it is stuff you can't. You know, whether you'll succeed or not is not something that I know how to do anything about.
Like when you're in the group is in the middle of one of these things, and say it starts to flounder a bit,
yeah,
and like somebody's waiting for somebody else to say, okay, take it this way.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when it's really connecting and the whole audience is like riding the crest of a wave with you, or when it's floundering, does that come to you from the audience? Do you feel like we're all in this together?
Well, yeah, to a certain extent. But I got to say
really
that it's more here. You know what I mean? And there's also levels of that. I mean, one opens out into the other. You know, they spill over into each other. So it's like sometimes those moments when it's floundering, perhaps. I mean, I might be locked more into what I'm doing, and then moments when it's like moving gracefully, it's like I may be farther away from it. You know what I mean? It's like happening of its own accord. But these things are all, you know, pretty subjective, and there's also like an infinity of gradation between all these states of consciousness and relationships between the audience and the player, and between all the members of the band as well. So there's a whole. For me, there's these hierarchies of relationships that sort of go outward. The primal one is between me and my instrument. That's like A. You know, and then B is between me and my instrument and the rest of the band, you know, which is immediately much more complex. And then there's all of us in the band and the audience, which is that much more complex. They're sort of, you know, they fit inside each other. In other words, if I can't expand beyond the basic relationship of me and my instrument, I'm not going to ever even hear the band. You know what I mean? I'll be spending all my time just trying to play.
Well, in your monitor system, do you get everybody?
In my physical location on stage, I get everybody. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's
I've
part of
heard
what.
Things like, well, sometimes the lead guitarist only gets the bass and the drum.
That happens in some bands, but in the Grateful Dead, we've made every effort to create a physical setup on stage that allows us, with the addition of monitors and whatever, that allows us all to hear the whole band. Because with our kind of music, I mean, it's essential that everybody hear everybody else. It's essential. You know, you can't, ignore anything.
I read a while back, you did a concert in somewhere in New York State, one of the universities, I think, and everybody got on the same wavelength, and somehow, somewhere else, another location, maybe 100 or 200 miles away, with electronic instruments, somebody picked it up, as if it was a communal telepathic wave that was sent out.